Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a close look at memory, kind of reverse engineering how it works based on some really interesting neuroscience texts. So it's going to be a fascinating exploration of different types of memories and, the brain regions that are actually involved.
Yeah, and how they can be affected by damage, disease, even just aging.
Exactly. And we'll be tackling some intriguing questions like, why do some memories just fade while others stick with us for years? Can damage to specific parts of the brain, like, actually cause really particular memory problems? And, how does the brain actually store all this information in the first place?
It's actually way more complex than you might think.
Well, that's what we're here to find out. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to discover how this incredible system works in your very own brain.
Huh.
And just a little teaser, your brain isn't recording your life like a video camera. It's way more complicated than that.
Oh, absolutely. Most people think memory and they picture like, I don't know, one big file cabinet for everything. But it turns out our brains use entirely different systems for different types of information, each with its own, well, quirks.
This is more like a high-tech filing system, but in my head.
Precisely. One of the big distinctions is between declarative and non-declarative memory. Declarative memory is what we usually think of as memory, consciously recalling facts or events, like knowing that Paris is the capital of France, or remembering what you ate for dinner last night.
Okay, so that's the knowing what. But you mentioned knowing how earlier, too. How's that different?
Ah, good point. That's
Yeah.
non-declarative memory. It's less about conscious recall and more about expressing knowledge through actions. Like, think about riding a bike or playing a musical instrument. You don't have to mentally go through every step, you just do it.
Wow, that's actually a really cool distinction. So are you saying these different types of memory actually live in different parts of my brain?
Absolutely. Declarative memory is heavily reliant on the hippocampus and some related structures in the medial temporal lobe. If these areas are damaged, well, that's when amnesia can happen, where people have trouble forming new memories or remembering things from the past.
Okay, so that makes sense. But what about these material-specific memory impairments we were reading about?
This is where it gets even more fascinating. Even within that medial temporal lobe memory system, there's specialization. The left and right sides have different strengths.
Oh, so it's kind of like having a left-brained memory and a right-brained memory, just like we hear about with other brain functions.
You could think of it that way.
Yeah.
The left side is great at handling verbal stuff names, facts, vocabulary. If this area is damaged, someone might have trouble remembering names or learning new words. Like when a name is on the tip of your tongue, but you just can't quite grasp it.
Oh, tell me about it. Happens to me all the time. So what about the right side then? What kind of information does it specialize in?
The right side's the champion of nonverbal stuff faces, spatial information, even melodies. Damage here could make it difficult to recognize familiar faces or to navigate, say, a familiar route.
It's almost like they're doing detective work for the brain, isn't it? By looking at these very specific memory problems, researchers can figure out which areas are in charge of what types of memories. But what's really blowing my mind right now is how even within memory, it's not a one-size-fits-all system.
It's remarkable, and we're still learning so much. For instance, the role of the hippocampus in semantic memory, our general knowledge about the world, how much it's involved, is still being debated.
Wait, you mean the hippocampus isn't just about personal experiences like those episodic memories? It helps us learn facts, too.
Exactly. Some research suggests that when amnesia affects episodic memory, the ability to learn new facts is impaired to a similar degree. But others argue that semantic learning is at least partly preserved.
So even with amnesia, it might be possible for someone to learn new facts. That's really surprising.
It is. There are some pretty intriguing case studies, like patients AB and LJ. Both had amnesia, but they showed a remarkable ability to learn new facts, which really makes you think about how interconnected these memory systems are.
That makes me think about retrograde amnesia, which I think we tend to picture as, you know, losing access to old memories. But it's not just about forming new memories, it's potentially losing those old ones too.
You got it. Retrograde amnesia refers to the loss of memories from before the brain injury. And here's where it gets even more interesting. It often follows what we call a temporal gradient. Older memories tend to be better preserved than more recent ones.
So are you saying my oldest memories are safe and sound, but recent events are more, I don't know, fragile?
That's a good way to think about it. There are a couple of possible explanations for this. One idea is that as memories age, they actually become less reliant on the hippocampus. It's like they get transferred to the neocortex for more permanent storage.
Ah, so it's like those really important memories get backed up on the hard drive. What about the other explanation?
Well, another possibility is that simply because we access and revisit those older memories more often, that creates multiple traces in the brain, making them stronger and less likely to be totally lost. Like a well-worn path, they're easier to find.
That's fascinating. So the simple act of telling stories about our past might actually be helping to preserve those memories.
It very well could be. Now, moving beyond declarative and non-declarative memory, there are other fascinating types, like priming, where past experiences can unconsciously influence your performance.
Hold on, give me an example of that. I'm having trouble picturing how my past could be shaping my actions without me even knowing.
Sure, let's say you see a list of words, and one of them is doctor. Later, you're asked to complete a word fragment, like DCTR. Statistically, you're much more likely to fill it in as doctor, even if you don't consciously remember seeing the word on that earlier list.
So it's like my brain is subtly connecting the dots in the background.
Exactly, and this is related to something called repetition suppression. Believe it or not, brain activity actually decreases when we encounter something we've processed before. It's like our brains become more efficient at handling familiar information.
Makes sense. Practice makes perfect, even for our brains. The more we do something, even without realizing it, the less effort it takes. I had no idea there was so much going on beneath the surface of what I thought of as memory.
It is remarkable, and there's still so much we don't know. For example, why people with anterograde amnesia struggle to form new memories.
So anterograde amnesia, that's the opposite of retrograde amnesia, right?
Yeah.
With retrograde, you can't access those old memories, but with anterograde, you can't create new ones.
Exactly. There are a few different theories about why this happens. One of the leading ones is the consolidation deficit theory. The idea is that the hippocampus might be crucial for transferring new memories from that short-term storage to long-term storage in the neocortex.
So, like, the hippocampus is the save button for new memories, but with anterograde amnesia, that button's not working.
That's one way to think about it. And it makes you wonder what other factors might influence this consolidation process, like medication.
Wait, are you saying drugs can mess with our memory? I mean, besides the obvious things like, having one too many drinks and forgetting the night.
Oh, absolutely. Some medications, like benzodiazepines or anticholinergics, can actually impair memory. And not just because they make you drowsy, they specifically affect those memory processes. It's called psychological specificity.
So even when it seems like a drug is just making you sleepy,
Mm.
it could be messing with your ability to form and retrieve memories. Does that mean there are drugs that could, like, boost memory?
That's what researchers are exploring. But memory is a delicate system. Enhancing one aspect might have unintended consequences.
Right, it's like overclocking a computer.
Yeah.
You might get more speed, but also risk instability. But what about those times when we just need to hold information in our minds for a short time, not permanently store it? Isn't that working memory?
Exactly. Working memory is essential for temporarily holding information while we're using it, like remembering a phone number just long enough to dial it, or following steps in a recipe. And just like with long-term memory, there are different systems for different types of information.
Like that phonological short-term memory, the one that deals with sound-based information.
That's the one. The phonological loop, a component of working memory, is crucial for holding on to sounds. It lets us repeat a new word someone just said or remember a string of numbers, and it's also incredibly important for language acquisition. Problems with this system can make it much harder to learn new words.
It's wild how something as simple as remembering a phone number is connected to something as complex as building your vocabulary.
Absolutely. And working memory isn't just about sound. We also have visual and spatial working memory systems.
So like separate mental sketch pads, one for what things look like and one for where they are in space.
You could think of it that way. Visual working memory holds information about the features of objects, like their color or shape. Spatial working memory keeps track of locations and movements.
So trying to remember where I parked my car is spatial working memory, but remembering what color my car is, that's visual working memory.
Exactly. But what happens when that huge storehouse of knowledge, our general knowledge, starts to fade? That's what we see in semantic memory impairment.
So that's when you start losing general knowledge. What causes that?
Well, semantic dementia is a condition where people experience a progressive loss of semantic knowledge. They might struggle to name objects or understand word meanings or remember basic facts about the world.
It almost seems like the opposite of amnesia. With amnesia, your personal memories are affected, but you might still be able to learn facts. But with semantic dementia, it's your general knowledge that's going.
You've hit on a key difference. And what's really intriguing about semantic dementia is that the loss of concepts doesn't always follow a simple pattern.
Wait, are you saying someone could forget what a bird is, but still remember specific types of birds? Like robin or eagle? That seems so strange.
It is a bit of a mystery. Some researchers think personal specific memories might be better preserved because they're more emotionally charged or have been reinforced through repeated experiences.
Okay, so the personal connection to a concept might make it more resistant to this type of memory loss. That's really interesting.
It is, and it makes you think about how knowledge is represented in the brain and how our personal experiences might play a role in all of that. But it gets even more complex when we talk about confabulation.
Confabulation, that's a new one. What is that?
It's essentially honest lying. Individuals genuinely believe false memories, even though they're objectively not true.
Wait, so they're not intentionally deceiving anyone? They really believe these made-up stories.
That's what makes it so fascinating. There are several theories about why this happens. One is that it's due to temporal context confusion, where memories from different times get all mixed up.
So like accidentally inserting a memory from last week into a story about their childhood.
Exactly. Others think it might be a failure in the brain's memory editing processes, where it doesn't properly suppress irrelevant or inaccurate information when retrieving a memory.
So it's like a glitch in the system. Why would our brains create these false narratives that we actually believe to be true?
That's the big question. One possibility is that our brains are just wired to create coherent narratives, even if it means filling in the gaps with fabrications. It shows how memory isn't a perfect recording, it's a process, influenced by our current knowledge, beliefs, and even emotions.
Wow, this really makes me think about how much we take our memories for granted. They feel so real, but they're actually vulnerable to all sorts of distortions and errors.
That's right. And as we get older, those vulnerabilities can become more pronounced.
So it's not just a myth that our memory declines as we age.
There are definitely changes in memory that come with aging, but it's not like everything just goes downhill. Some things, like episodic recall, might weaken, but others, like procedural memory and vocabulary, stay pretty strong.
So I might have more trouble remembering what I did yesterday, but I can still ride a bike and hold a conversation.
Exactly. And while some decline is a natural part of aging, there's growing evidence that lifestyle factors can have a huge impact on maintaining cognitive health.
Okay, so what's the good news? What can we do to keep our brains sharp as we age?
Well, studies have shown that getting regular physical exercise can actually have a positive effect on brain health, including memory.
So all those walks and trips to the gym are doing more than just keeping our bodies in shape.
You bet. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, which promotes the growth of new brain cells and strengthens those connections between neurons.
I love the image of our brains getting a good workout. What else can we do to keep those neural pathways humming?
Staying mentally active is just as important. Challenge your mind. Keep it learning. It could be anything from learning a new language or playing a musical instrument to doing crossword puzzles or just engaging in stimulating conversations.
So use it or lose it.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of a healthy diet and enough sleep.
So all those things our doctors keep telling us to do are good for our brains too.
Precisely. A healthy lifestyle supports brain function in so many ways. And when it comes to those age-related memory changes, it's never too early to start implementing those healthy habits.
This is all really encouraging. So while some decline might be inevitable, we're not powerless. We can take steps to give our brains the best chance of staying sharp as we get older, but there's much more to uncover about memory. Join us for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore even more fascinating aspects of this amazing system. We're back and ready to dive even deeper into this world of memory. I'm still kind of reeling from all the different systems and how they can be affected by, well, everything.
Yeah, it really is amazing. And now we're going to get into specific neurological conditions that can really impact memory.
Okay, I'm ready. We touched on how the brain doesn't store memories like a video recorder earlier. It's more about these patterns of connections and activation. So what happens when those patterns get disrupted?
Well, one really striking example is something called transient global amnesia, or TGA for short.
TDA, right. That's where someone suddenly experiences temporary memory loss, like a blackout, but not caused by drinking or anything like that.
Exactly. It's often described as a sudden onset of anterograde amnesia, meaning they can't form new memories, along with what we call patchy retrograde amnesia, meaning they might have gaps in their memory leading up to the episode.
So someone having a TGA episode could forget what they did that morning, or even who they were just talking to. That must be terrifying.
It can be very frightening, both for the person experiencing it and those around them. Imagine suddenly feeling lost in your own life, unable to grasp what's happening.
I can see why it would be so upsetting. Do researchers know what causes this sudden memory disruption?
Well, the exact cause is still being debated, but one of the main theories suggests it might be related to some kind of temporary disruption of blood flow to specific brain regions, especially the hippocampus, which we know is so important for memory. There are other possibilities, though, like migraine activity or even some types of seizures that affect those memory circuits.
Well, it's not like a mini stroke that causes permanent damage. Their memory usually comes back.
Right. Thankfully, it's usually transient, like the name suggests. Most episodes resolve within 24 hours, with people typically making a full recovery and experiencing no lasting impairment to their memory.
That's definitely a relief. We were reading that TGA seems to be more common in people over 50. Why is that?
That's a great question, and actually an area of active research. While we don't know exactly what triggers TGA, age is a significant risk factor. The chances of experiencing it increase as we get older.
So maybe it's related to those age-related changes in blood vessels or health conditions that are more common as we age.
That's a possibility. And it really underscores how our brains, just like the rest of our bodies, change throughout our lives. As we age, it becomes more and more important to be mindful of things that could impact brain health.
That's a good point. It's like preventative maintenance for our brains.
Exactly. And speaking of age, we can't talk about memory without addressing one of the biggest concerns, the changes that come with aging.
Ah, you mean those senior moments we all joke about?
Well, those occasional memory slips can be frustrating, but it's important to remember that age-related memory changes are not the same for everyone.
Right, so not everyone experiences a huge decline. And even those who do often maintain many of their cognitive abilities, right?
That's right. We talked before about procedural memory, those ingrained skill and habits. They tend to hold up really well.
That's good to know. Those are the ones I'm hanging on to.
It's true, those automatic processes are often remarkably resilient. Though it is true that some aspects of memory, especially episodic memory, those rich experiences from our lives, might become a little less sharp.
So maybe the vivid details of what we did or where we were or who we saw, they might become a bit fuzzier.
That's a common experience. It might take a little longer to recall specific events, and we might find ourselves more easily distracted when we're trying to remember.
Okay, so what's happening in the brain to cause these changes? Are we simply forgetting things, or is something more fundamental going on?
Well, there are actually multiple factors at play. We see changes in those neurotransmitter systems, which impacts how signals are transmitted between brain cells, and the hippocampus can show some shrinkage with age.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about forgetting, it's like the machinery itself is becoming a bit less efficient.
That's a good way to put it. It's a well-used machine that might need a little extra care. Plus, there are also changes in blood flow and metabolism in the brain, which can affect cognitive function.
Okay, this is starting to sound a bit discouraging. Is there anything we can do to slow these changes down or even reverse them?
Well, we can't stop time, but there's more and more evidence that lifestyle factors can play a huge role in maintaining good cognitive health as we age.
Okay, let's hear the good news then. What can we actually do to keep our brains sharp as we age? I'm ready to take notes.
Well, for starters, studies have shown that regular physical exercise can have a really positive impact on brain health, including memory.
So those daily walks or trips to the gym are doing more than just toning muscles.
Absolutely. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, and it can even promote the growth of new brain cells. Plus, it helps to strengthen those connections between neurons.
I like to picture our brains getting a good workout too. What else can we do?
Staying mentally active is key. Challenge your mind. Learn new things. This could be anything from learning a new language, to playing a musical instrument, to doing crossword puzzles, or even just having stimulating conversations.
So keep learning. Keep that brain working.
Exactly. And don't forget the basics. A healthy diet and enough sleep.
So basically, everything our doctors have been telling us to do is good for our brains too.
That's right. Taking care of your overall health is one of the best things you can do for your brain. And when it comes to those age-related memory changes, it's never too early to start building those healthy habits.
This is really great advice. So, while some decline might be unavoidable as we age, we have the power to take steps to keep our brains healthy. But what about when those age-related changes are more serious? What about those more significant memory challenges? We were reading about memory rehabilitation. What exactly is that?
That's a great question. Memory rehabilitation focuses on helping people either regain lost memory function or to develop strategies to cope with those memory impairments.
So are there medications that could potentially help with memory problems? We talked earlier about how certain drugs can affect memory.
Yes, there are ongoing trials for medications that target those specific neurotransmitter systems involved in memory. For example, drugs that boost acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that's really important for memory formation, are being studied for their potential to improve cognitive function.
So there's hope for those facing more serious memory challenges.
There is, and it's not just about medication. There are some very promising therapies that focus on cognitive training and rehabilitation.
What does that involve? Are we talking about brain exercises or something?
You could think of it that way. Cognitive rehabilitation often involves structured exercises and activities that are designed to strengthen certain cognitive skills, including memory. This might include things like memory games, recall techniques, or even virtual reality simulations.
So you're training your brain to compensate for those weaknesses, kind of like physical therapy, but for the brain.
That's a good analogy. And these therapies can be adapted to address specific types of memory problems.
It's really amazing how the brain can adapt, even when there are challenges.
It is, and it's not just about the individual either. Memory rehabilitation often involves educating family members and caregivers about memory disorders and giving them strategies to support their loved ones.
So it's a team effort.
Absolutely. And this field is constantly evolving. There are always new technologies and therapies emerging, so there's a lot to be hopeful about.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm really starting to see memory in a whole new light. It's so much more than just remembering facts and events. It's really a complex system that shapes who we are and how we interact with the world.
I agree, and the more we understand it, the better we can support both our own cognitive health and the well-being of those around us.
Exactly. But we're not done yet. There's still more to discover about this fascinating world of memory. Join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore how we can use these insights to create a more supportive and understanding world for those facing memory challenges. Welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our deep dive into the world of memory. We've explored so many fascinating facets of this intricate system, from its various types and how our brains store information to how aging and neurological conditions can impact it.
It really has been quite the journey. And now let's shift our focus to something crucial. How can we apply all these insights to actually help people who are facing memory challenges?
That's such an important question. We've learned a lot about the science, but how do we translate that knowledge into real-world action?
One key takeaway is recognizing the importance of early detection and intervention. Many memory disorders, especially those linked to neurodegenerative diseases, tend to develop gradually. Subtle symptoms often appear way before any serious impairment becomes obvious.
So those senior moments we sometimes dismiss could actually be early warnings of a bigger problem.
Precisely. That's why it's so important to pay attention to any persistent changes in memory or cognitive function. If you have concerns, don't hesitate to seek medical advice. Early diagnosis opens up opportunities for timely interventions like medication, therapy, or lifestyle changes, which could potentially slow down the progression of the disease or help manage symptoms more effectively.
It's about empowering people to take charge of their brain health, right? The more we understand about memory, the better equipped we are to advocate for ourselves and those around us.
Absolutely. And it's not just about medical interventions. Creating a supportive and understanding environment for people with memory impairments can have a huge impact on their quality of life. It's about recognizing that their worth as a person remains the same, even if their memory isn't.
So what can friends, family, and caregivers actually do to create that supportive environment? What are some practical tips?
Often, the simplest things can be the most helpful. Clear communication, patience, and offering gentle reminders can make a real difference. It's also essential to focus on their strengths and adapt activities to suit their needs.
Right, things like breaking down tasks into smaller steps, using visual cues like notes or photos, and trying to minimize distractions.
Exactly. And we can't overlook the role technology can play. There's a growing array of assistive devices and apps that can be really beneficial, from simple reminder systems to more advanced memory aids.
Like those pill dispensers that remind people when to take their medications, or calendar apps that send alerts for appointments.
Exactly. And as technology advances, we can expect even more innovative tools to emerge, which is really exciting.
It's incredible how technology can bridge those gaps and help people maintain their independence and stay engaged with the world. But as you said earlier, technology is just one piece of the puzzle. That human connection, feeling understood and valued, that's what truly matters.
I couldn't agree more. Providing emotional support, validating their feelings, and simply being there for them can be so powerful. It reminds them that they're not alone.
It's about acknowledging their inherent worth as individuals, recognizing that their value extends far beyond their memory.
Precisely. And as a society, we have a responsibility to continue raising awareness about memory disorders, combat stigma, and advocate for more research and accessible care. It's about creating a culture of empathy and understanding where those with memory impairments can live with dignity and autonomy.
That's a beautiful vision. It's a reminder that we all play a role in creating a more inclusive world for those facing cognitive challenges. And it starts with educating ourselves, challenging those old stereotypes, and having open conversations.
Well said. By learning about how memory works, how it can be disrupted, and what we can do to support brain health, we empower ourselves and others to approach memory loss with knowledge and compassion.
This deep dive has truly been a revelation. I'm walking away with a newfound respect for the incredible complexity and resilience of human memory. It's a precious gift we need to cherish and protect.
And it's a gift that's always evolving. As research continues to illuminate the workings of the brain, we can look forward to a future where memory disorders are better understood, more effectively treated, and ultimately preventable.
What an inspiring thought. A huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this incredible journey of discovery. We hope you found it as enlightening as we did. Remember, knowledge is power. By understanding memory, we open up possibilities for a future filled with better brain health for ourselves and those we care about. Until next time, keep those minds active, those memories cherished, and those connections with loved ones strong.